So one of the things that we really talk a lot about in art class is something called line quality. And line quality is a lot of different things, but a lot of the times when we're thinking about line quality or the basis of line quality, it's usually about a mark that starts out, maybe kind of a light mark and then goes gradually darker and darker and darker and darker and darker, right? So this kind of idea of having this very, very light mark that I'm making here, and then I'm slowly pushing a little bit harder and harder and harder and harder, and then as hard as I can, right? So I'm getting a gradual line that's in there that's changing. And this becomes one of the great key markers of line quality, right? If we think about this type of a line, how can we use it in space? So if we think about a one-point perspective drawing, and we have our horizon line out here, and we have our vanishing point that's out here, right? And we've drawn ourselves a nice house that's over here. If we change up the line quality of this house a bit as it goes into space, we can very, very quickly come up with a way that improves the look of the line quality. So maybe as it's closer to us, it's significantly darker. So here then will be some really, really dark marks that make up the house piece that's closest to us. But maybe as we get farther away, the house actually gets lighter. That gives more of a sense of space as it moves away, and you can kind of see how these very dark marks up here in the front, even if we make them even darker than they are now, can make the house look like it's appearing closer and closer to us. So one of the ways to handle that too is working with the other part, line thickness, right? So if you have a thicker line, it actually will appear to be significantly darker than a thinner line will. And so line thickness is something you can play with as well. As I make it thicker, physically thicker, it seems like that has more weight to it even yet. And that gives us a feeling of a lot of depth, right, as it moves away. Now, one of the things that you'll see artists work with more recently are these brush pens, right? And so brush pens, work very similarly to this. If I start out by pushing down quite a bit with this brush pen, I'll get a very thick mark out of it. But as I pick up and push less, I'll get a much thinner mark. And this brings a lot of character to line. And it's a way of kind of working with both qualities of line, lightness and darkness, and thickness and thinness all at once. And you can see if I start a line out over here and I keep it very light, it seems as if that's farther away. But as I get closer with it, if I put a lot of weight into it, it seems as if it's getting closer, 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 closest. Right? So those kind of ideas in line are something that you see very commonly in art. This idea of line quality and space, or thickness and thinness in space, or lightness and darkness in space. So one piece that's historically interesting when it comes to a line quality is this piece by Rembrandt called Christ Tormented on the Cross. It was a study for a painting. The actual painting in the end looked nothing like this whatsoever. But I think it's really interesting to note the differences in line quality between the different characters, the way that Christ himself is treated here, or how the bits around him are slightly more developed, and the way that as we go back into space and see things like the setting that's back in here, or the other person who's being crucified, or the idea of space starts to set up a bit as well because of this line quality. Now, there's a little bit of value change that's happening in here and in the ground right in here, but mostly what's happening is this is a much heavier line quality, and the line quality gets kind of sketchier and lighter as we get off into the distance. And through line, Rembrandt has really accurately described perspective, right? He has this idea of atmospheric perspective that's going on in this work, and it's really brilliantly done. So a nice piece on line quality by Rembrandt called Christ Tormented on the Cross. All right, let's do some drawing.